Hello, I'm David Hibbert, and this is Answers. In this series, my goal is to help you by sharing with you short biblical answers to questions that people have been asking me. And today's question is, why do bad things happen if God is in control? So many people ask me this. Why do bad things happen if God is in control? Well, let's make some clarifications first. Number one, God is always in control. Isaiah chapter 14 verse 24 says, "The Lord Almighty has sworn, surely I have planned, so it will be. And as I have purposed, so it will stand." Okay. Also Ephesians chapter 1 verse 11, "In him we were also chosen, having been predestined according to the plan of him who works out everything in conformity with the purpose of his will." And so God has a plan for every person and for every situation. And God will make sure that those plans will be accomplished. So yes, God is completely in control. However, God does not always take control. You see, God created each one of us with a free will, and He honors our free will. However, with our free will, we make poor choices, and He allows us to experience the consequences of those poor choices. So even though God is in control and will make sure that His plans are accomplished, even when we make poor choices, He does not always take control, because when God takes control, there's no free will anymore, and we're not allowed a choice in the matter. For example, when God wanted His people to come out of Egypt, He was in control, but He still gave His people free will, the chance to make their own decision. And as a result, it took them 40 years to get to the promised land when it really should have only taken a few months, okay? However, when God decided to punish the earth with a flood, a worldwide flood, He took control. And there was absolutely nothing that anyone could do to stop the flood. There was no free will in the flood. There was in the escape from Egypt. Everyone could decide whether they're going to put the blood on the doorposts or not. Everyone could decide if they're going to leave Egypt or not. But in the worldwide flood, He took control. There was no choice. So, God's plan versus God's will. See, God is always in control. Same way in my house, I am in control, but my kids get to do a lot of stuff they want. But if I take control, there's no more choice, right? So although God is always in control, He does not always take control. So God's plan is always accomplished, but God's specific will is not always done. Matthew chapter 6 verses 9 and 10 says, "This then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name." Then the prayer, "Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." Okay, in Jesus' prayer, in the Lord's Prayer, Jesus taught us to pray, "Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." Why did He ask us to pray that way? Because God's will is not always being done on earth as it is in heaven. Discrimination is not His will. Child prostitution is not His will. Murder is not His will. But He often allows it because He's chosen to honor our free will. So God allows us free will. So His purposes, long-term purposes will be accomplished, but His individual will for each situation may not be accomplished because of our free will. See, here's an interesting point. Our God-given authority, Luke chapter 10, verse 19, Jesus said, "I have given you authority to overcome all the power, all the works of the enemy." See, Jesus has given us that authority. So when God's will is not being done, often it is because we are not using our authority to ensure that God's will is done on earth, right? Because we are the ones with free will. We can use our authority to make sure God's will is done. See, much of the evil in the world today is because Christians are not using their God-given authority to overcome the enemy. Police officers have authority, but when they do not use their authority, there can be a lot of anarchy, crime, and violence on the streets. In the same way, when Christians do not use their authority and bind up the works of Satan, much evil can happen on this earth. You see, why can't God just take control? Like all the time, God, why can't you just take control over every situation? Well, he could, but then everything that happens would be because he forced it to happen. And so we would no longer have any choices in life. He would circumvent our God-given free will. But then as a result, our love would be meaningless, because love only has meaning when we have free will and the choice not to love. If I'm forced to always love, my love means nothing. If I have the choice not to love, but I still love, then my love means something. Compassion would be meaningless, because compassion only has meaning when we have the choice not to show compassion. Mercy would be meaningless, because mercy only has meaning when we have the choice not to show mercy. And so God has decided that we must have free will, but sadly that means that people may choose to do wrong, and that's why much of the evil in the world happens, even though God is in control. God bless you. Hope to see you at another edition of Answers.